Now, the Human Resources Management Association of Trinidad and Tobago, they're having one of their C-suite conversations, and this time they're focusing on innovation, and that is happening on June 7th. And what HRMATT has realized is that savvy executives now view innovation as critical to success. They've learned that the risks that accompany innovation, such as losing market share, disrupting services to good customers, or temporarily sacrificing productivity, are often worth taking. And it is for this reason and much more that HRMATT is having this upcoming conference that's taking place in June. And so joining us this morning are two representatives from the organization. We have the president, of course, no stranger to us, Cavell Joseph St. Omer, and education officer Kimberly Chan Boudram. Ladies, good morning.
Good morning.
Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
And thank you always for having us.
Always. HRMATT is a trusted friend and partner at this point. So happy to have you in this morning. Now, the future of global workplace and the concept of employment, what is that, first of all? And how does it align with the overall mandate of HRMATT?
Okay, so we've seen a lot of disruptions in the last decade, and this has been accelerated with COVID in the last 3 years, right? Market conditions have changed, the work structures have changed as a consequence of the same, and of course with economic and also social clashes, or I should say social disruptions, all impacting the workspace and the workforce and the availability of the workforce. We recognize that this, and with all the changes that we're experiencing globally, requires a different conversation that we need to be having with our practitioners and bringing CEOs, leaders, and HR professionals in the same space to discuss such interruptions. Now, innovation and how we innovate in the workspace will help us naturally to address some of the issues we face globally. And we have to be a little bit more creative and agile in our response, and HR has to support the executives as we now look for different ways to stay relevant, to stay in business, for companies to not only survive but thrive under these present market conditions that we now face. And naturally, we have a role to play not only in recruiting and selecting and onboarding the traditional functions, but even how corporate culture now adapts and changes to the changes in the environment that we're experiencing.
But why this conference now?
Well, we've been tackling so many different subject matters at HRMATT, right? And we recognize now more than ever, companies have to innovate to remain relevant. And HR has to see the role that they play as organizations, focus on innovation, because we do have a role to play in how we engage talent and how we in terms of our own talent acquisition strategy, how we prepare the talent within our organization for the pipeline and the future of the organization, how we create the culture, how we develop that talent, and how we retain them. You know, there's a war on talent. We've been hearing that for years, but that war, even though it's an employer-friendly market at this point in time, keeping good talent and keeping people creative and constantly driving new business ideas, that's critical, and that's why you want to retain your best people. And HR has a role to play in supporting executives in creating the right environment to do that. And it's for that main reason we decided this topic, this theme, is so critical and crucial at this particular point in time. And we're seeing so many changes, not only in how work is done, but even what we define the workspace to be, how people want to be compensated, the whole concept of digital currency and all of that. How are we preparing our workforce in Trinidad and Tobago to those changes? Across the world, people are asking to be paid in digital currency, right? We know the concept of dollars and having your money deposited into your bank account.
Or even looking at something on a screen.
Right.
And so I think what you're speaking to as well is the culture of the organization. I want to bring in Kimberly here. I mean, how can local companies adapt to that sort of change and innovation that Cavell mentioned?
So the very first thing that I would say in terms of company culture and corporate culture, all in all, would be mindset. So certainly leaders, C-suite, and particularly in this conversation, HR practitioners do need to change their mindset and recognize that things are upon us. It's no longer the future that is coming. So we hear a lot about AI and technology. We hear about how it will affect organizations, but we are not considering how we can get our people up to scratch, how this will change our company's culture, how can we change the mindset of our staff to adapt to this and not see, for an example of AI or cryptocurrency as something that's going to take away jobs or close banks down, but see how it can actually support, how it can be secure, what are the positives in it. An organization's culture not only speaks about what we do or how we do it, but really how we behave. How are we open-minded to accepting some of these things? Yeah. So it's really a shift in mindset that is needed now. It is upon us, and it's no longer the future. It's no longer something that's going to come up. It is here already.
It's here already. Now, as we change that mindset, do we also have to look at laws and the way that the organization is run, given what the local context of our laws are? So
certainly, along this conversation about innovation, and we've looked at large organizations may have suffered because they chose not to be innovative. And in terms of our legislation, and again, I keep talking about this conversation, or these conversations around people, innovative organizations, not just about a hybrid workplace, but about how we include people, so diversity, equity, inclusion. And when we have some of those conversations, people often think about sexual orientation only, but not about disability. One of the things that HRMATT has been touching on is how we bring persons in terms of or reintegrate the previously incarcerated people into society. So that sort of inclusion is what HRMATT is advocating for. Legislation to support the amendment of the Equal Opportunities Act as an example. So there are other various pieces, and if we talk about AI and artificial all of these new things and machine learning, we have to really look at our data protection laws or cybersecurity acts. And we've touched on some of those pieces of legislation, but it's not fully fleshed out. Yes. It's not up to date. And we are seeing many cyber attacks. We've had organizations right here in Trinidad and Tobago who, because we take for granted that any cyber attack will be done on a small Caribbean island like ours, but we've been held ransom. We know of organizations in the recent past that has actually happened to, and we've seen the significant impact of it. So not only talking about the HR legislation, but HRMATT is here to talk about business opportunities because we advocate for HR professionals to take the next step into the boardroom, into being CEOs. And if we as HR practitioners want to get into that space, we not only need to focus on equal opportunity laws, Industrial Relations Act, but we need to talk about all these things. A comprehensive approach, of course, I understand is what you're saying, Kimberly. And I appreciate that. And Cavell, I want you to take us back to the conference in terms of some of the topics that we're going to see being discussed. Also, are there going to be any featured speakers?
Yes, well, we do have on June 7th at the Hyatt, between the hours of 7 a.m. to 12 p.m. We do have public policy position. We always start with that, giving the government an opportunity to share what their public policy position is. So we have the Minister of Planning and Development, the Honorable Penelope Beckles, who has been really great in supporting the work of most associations, including HRMATT. Then, of course, naturally a panel. And the panel covers various sectors, right? So we have aviation. I'm still waiting on Mr. Madeira to say yes to us.
Hello, good morning.
So if he's looking, the pressure is on, right? But certainly Caribbean Airlines and what we've been seeing happening at Caribbean Airlines, these are stories. We have to appreciate Caribbean business stories as well, too, because we often, when students have to look at business cases in their research, we always have to look to international organizations when we have so many local domestic firms doing wonderful things that should be shared. So naturally, Caribbean Airlines and the CEO there, we do have Dr. Joseph Khan, who is, of course, no stranger to the business landscape with his role at NGC, but also in his professional capacity as a project management consultant. We have Raquel Moses. I mean, Raquel is phenomenal in what she's been doing, especially as it relates to climate change and all of that, right? And we have to bring climate change into the conversation when we talk about innovation as well. Ingrid Chahar, and we know Ingrid in terms of what she's been doing with the cinema industry and even being the firm that size entering into being publicly traded on a local stock exchange and all of that. I mean, there's so many firsts happening right there that we need to discuss and hear a little bit more.
Now, Cavell, you are mentioning so many amazing speakers, and I know you can go on and on, but I was also wondering who this particular conference targets. Is it just for the average person? Is it just for the thought leaders, entrepreneurs? Who is the target audience for this?
Targeting everyone with an interest in innovation. I think we all have to be invested in what's happening. This is not an HR conversation only. Anybody managing people should be in that space. Anyone who has entrepreneurial ambitions, because you will get ideas and tips coming out of our last C-suite conversation. I mean, the panel was so good, the room was so motivated, because we have the gig economy and people who juggle in between working for an organization and business-oriented as well. So you will get ideas in that space, get a sense of what opportunities are available to you locally to help you penetrate new markets, for example. So it's for everyone with an interest in the subject matter. It's not only open to HR practitioners or HRMATT members. We want to see our room fill because it's an opportunity to learn from the best. We have the best being presented on every occasion. We have a moderator, Jessime Vento, this time around. Yes, we are rotating that. So at some point in time, we'd like to see you on the HRMATT stage as well. Right?
She said it on national TV. Everybody hear that?
You know, because again, it's opportunities for others to hone in their skills and to be a part of the conversation as well. So that's what we're in the business of as well, providing opportunities.
I'm coming back to you because when I think of innovation, I think about digitization, and I want to know how those disruptions in technology can feed into that.
So again, I touch a bit about, you know, just security from that perspective, but we've seen so much disruption because, again, disruption from the technology perspective, we're looking at the capability. One of the things that I often say is that Trinidad and Tobago have excellent IT people. Do we have the infrastructure to support that data technology, that digitization? Because I've had many conversations either over a drink or in a professional setting where we talk to these people who have these great minds. Every organization now have it on their strategic plan. We want to have conversation, want to digitize everything. But again, I often go back to security risk, not only disruptions from a technology perspective, but disruptions from a people perspective, because there are many people who still need to get away from the mindset of this is going to take away from my job. So they too are disrupting the process, and we as HR practitioners need to help them. And that's where we come in again to help our employees, again, going back to culture, to help them to understand and shape that mindset of seeing the potential benefits of having these technology and not seeing technology as a disruption. So from that perspective, HR fits in as well.
Now I know that the ministry has started that sort of tendering process for the work from home policy. Do you see work from home and things like that that would have started in the pandemic being a part of this innovation process at companies? And anybody can take this question.
Sure. Work from home will be here to stay as well. As workers demand more flexibility in what they do, as we seek to embrace the new going forward, elements of it and hybrid system will remain, right? We've seen some benefits to it naturally, and of course there's some disadvantages, but it's the blending. And as I say to when Kimberly and the rest of us talk, employees want a cafeteria of options, because things that would work for you naturally wouldn't work for me, right? There's some people who actually like being in the workspace, interacting with their colleagues one-on-one, having those eyeball conversations, as I like to say. But it's just one. And the thing is, every time we talk about COVID, we talk about work from home, but there were so many other things being ushered in besides that we have to consider. And why the legislative agenda is so important is because our laws have to catch up to the society that has changed, and the needs of our society has changed, right? And digitalization is not only about AI and technology, but as I said, even how we pay, how we define the workspace, how insurance companies see it as well too, because there's a big gap now in terms of risk and how we manage risk when you're working from home versus being in the office. Who's liable at that stage if something were to occur, right?
Or whose equipment are you using at that point? Your personal versus, you know, what is...
So yes, work from home definitely is here to stay. We've actually seen many organizations go back, and you know, it's disappointing for HR practitioners who think very forward to see it revert. But I could only be here sitting with you all because I come from home, and after here I'm going back home to work. So you know, I always advocate, and we work strictly remote, and the organization is fully functional. So as I said, I could only be here with you all because I could go back home and work from home.
Yeah, so going back to what Cavell was saying, and of course you, Kimberly, it works in a different context. It may work for you, Kimberly, because of what you're doing, but maybe somebody who needs to be there, let's look at the people at licensing office, etc., who may need to be present to get that face-to-face interaction with the customers. Now, ladies, before you go, Cavell, just remind me when it's taking place, where it's taking place, and if anybody needs to get more information about the conference, where can they go to?
So it's June 7th at the Hyatt, 7 a.m. to 12 noon. Tickets are available online via our website, www.HRMATT.com, and that's digital tickets, by the way. Right? It's not physical, right? They can also contact our secretariat at HRMATT.com, and visit all our social media platforms. We are on Instagram, LinkedIn, Facebook, so you're guaranteed to get the link to register on any one of those platforms. We too are embracing the new. HRMATT actually functions virtually as well too.
Nice.
So we do not have a physical office space, and it's all part of the new. There are cost benefits to that, and there are also governance issues as a result of that too. So that's why we have to have the conversation, because it's so much more involved, and our legislative agenda should incorporate that as well, because our world has changed and we need everything else to catch up with that. We don't want to be left behind in this part of the world at all. We have so much talent, so much creativity. Our people are in fact innovative. We've proven that time and time again. We just need systems to support it and also to allow for the new ideas to come to life, you know.
Well, I think we have to have you back in to talk about the legislative agenda, and maybe we can even get the Minister of Public Administration, Alison West, to join us as well, so we can talk about the legislation and see how we can bring innovation and, of course, digitization forward. Ladies, thank you so much for joining us this morning. All the best with the conference that's taking place on June 7th, and we look forward to see what else is going to be happening or coming from HRMATT in the near future.
Thank you always for having us.
Of course.
You and the entire team at TTT.
And that was the president of HRMATT, Cavell Joseph St. Omer, and also the education officer, Kimberly Chan Boudran, just sharing about their new or latest conference that's taking place on June 7th as they discuss innovation in the workplace. You're on the Now Morning Show. We're going to take a break, and be right back. Stay with us.